Welcome to the Ask Skinny podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Alexandra Dotcheva from US. Alexandra is a real estate entrepreneur and a holistic coach. Alexandra, welcome to our podcast. Please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Sure. Thank you so much, Peter, for having me. So excited to be here. Well, my story is a little lengthy, but let's just start. I'm Bulgarian. I came to the States in 2000. I was a professional classical violinist for 29 years. So I came to the States as a student in 2000 to earn my master's and doctoral degrees in classical violin, which I did in 2007. And then in 2008, with the financial crisis, I realized violin was not going to work very well as far as prosperity, realistically speaking. And I put myself through nursing school. So I'm a registered nurse. And then in 2014, I learned about real estate investing, and now I have 3 real estate businesses. And the holistic coaching came later, about a couple years ago, when people really wanted to know how all this developed in my life, because they knew I was a very shy person. I wasn't very confident in many ways for almost 2 decades. I had issues with stage fright as a violinist and all that stuff that I had to overcome to learn all these new things. And in a nutshell, I went through many stages in my life professionally just to overcome these problems I had that started from childhood. And now I'm very happy to say that I'm financially independent. Yes, I am an entrepreneur, but I also work as a nurse. And I love to see both sides of the career spectrum as a business person and an employee. Gives me a very realistic perspective about the world. And I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that is amazing story. I have so many questions I wanted to ask you. First, I would
Sure.
like to start with the music. So you are a violinist, and that is extremely difficult. It takes a lot of practice, years and years. And you said that you needed 7 years to get a doctor's degree in violin in US. And then after all this and investing so much effort, you are so flexible that you said, okay, maybe there's not, even if I'm one of the best, because I would expect that you were really good if you invested so much time in it, then you become nurse. Is nursing business something that is close to you because you care about people? Why did you decide on a nursing career?
Many factors, Peter. For one thing, I didn't want to spend another 11 years in college because when I came to the States, I already had a bachelor's degree in violin, and then the master's and doctoral. And I wanted to feel more useful to society than I was as a musician. I was a decent violinist, but not competitive enough to survive in a shrinking market that cut orchestras, bankruptcies, and downsized significantly. Because in the United States, we depend on private donors, not like government supporting culture like it's in many countries in Europe. So I had to confront that and face that I wasn't competitive enough. But with nursing, I knew it was a profession in high demand. Nurses are very respected in the United States when they do their jobs properly, I have to add that. I wasn't going to be another 10, 11 years in college. 3 years was to get the degree that I needed to become a nurse. And that was very attractive too. And I had a job immediately after I graduated. And it was ironic because the orchestra that I was employed with, the Syracuse Symphony Orchestra, we bankrupted in 2011. And that's exactly when I graduated from nursing school. And I had a job waiting for me in the hospital. So it was a crazy, great timing. I felt very bad for my colleagues that, bankrupted and all that and lost their incomes. But nursing, it is a great profession because you learn tremendously from the real experiences from people who are very, very sick and family members of people who are very, very sick. And it was a completely huge cultural shock, which I was expecting. I knew that was going to happen because when you're an artist, a musician, you really have little understanding about the real world, even though we think we know everything because we have dedicated so many hours practicing and discipline and work ethic, and somehow that creates an idea that you know a lot about the real world, but you really don't. And so you encounter a large variety of people from all sorts of backgrounds when you're a nurse, way less limited exposure to realities of people. And it's a rough world out there, and I'm very happy I made that change. And it was not because I was flexible, mind you, because I became very afraid of poverty. as a musician, and that's what made me switch. It was anything but flexibility. It was all anxiety and fear driven, but I'm grateful that I managed to overcome that fear to make it my ally, to make me more curious to learn stuff. And later on, that applied with real estate investing as well.
Can you tell us a bit more how you got into the real estate? Was that a workshop? Was that a person that made it interesting for you? How did you go from being a nurse into real estate investing?
So I am still a nurse, obviously already 13 years, but I saw how the nurses lived here in the States. There was a very high turnover rate in all the hospitals that I saw, and I worked in 2 hospitals before I became a home care nurse for a big company. But it was really obvious that job security was a myth because people got burned out so quickly with the long hours of work and taking very little care of themselves. I saw how many nurses were sicker than the patients in many cases, and they carried every disease known to man, yet they were teaching people how to live healthy. So that really didn't resonate with me because I'm a health freak. I believe that if I'm a nurse, I have to be a perfect example to my patients for impeccable health and self-demand and integrity. Well, not all the nurses are that way, and I don't blame them necessarily, but some of them really can do much better. So I wanted a plan B financially. I wanted to learn how to expand the money that I kept because I always have been very, very good at saving money. I don't spend money for things I don't need. I don't have a complex that I have to demonstrate a societal status to other people to make myself feel good. That's never been the case because my parents did an excellent job telling me certain things are not important. Just be healthy, be an honest person, work hard, and everything else will come. Well, I mean, there is more to that, of course, right? But with investing, I wanted to know how to expand my savings to beat inflation and to have choices if I didn't want to work, that I don't have to work. I wanted to also learn how to do business because I was curious. I was very curious. What is the other side of the aisle when you're not an employee, but you own your own business and you have your own boss, which some people think, oh, it's a wonderful idea, but actually increases your responsibility tenfold towards the people that you are servicing. In my case, it's the residents of my properties. So I started reading Robert Kiyosaki's books, Peter, very intensely. I read 7 books by Robert Kiyosaki before I decided to purchase his mentorship online. Okay, and then I took a real estate coaching program with him, which was extremely smart thing to do because I had no clue about finances. I had never owned a property. I was a tenant 14 years in this country before I purchased my first fourplex, a building with 4 apartments. My first property was an investment property, and that helped very much. I really followed the clues, the ideas, the values in that coaching program that I took because I was so ignorant and he was so experienced. And Kiyosaki really has a wonderful way to explain hard concepts in ways that somebody like me could understand because I was really very poor knowledge financially. All I knew was how to just save money and not spend it, but nothing about investing, risk taking, risk tolerance. All these concepts were completely new to me. So I wanted to expand financially and understand numbers and just not be limited just by a job. And that's what prompted me to do the investing.
Okay, you already hinted that you got coaching from Robert Kiyosaki. And then I'm really interested in knowing how you got from property investment into holistic coaching. Would you explain a bit more about that area?
Yeah, that was interesting because I published a book in 2021 about a holistic approach to self-confidence. People started asking questions. How did you go from a musician to a nurse to investor, and now you're completely financially independent and you have choices as to what to do with your life that people your age that we know don't have these choices because they never learned these things. So I started writing the book in 2020. I published it in 2021. It's called It Really Is Simple, A Holistic Approach to Self-Confidence. And I started appearing on podcasts to advertise my book, right? And giving speeches here and there. And then the host said, so you're also a coach, right? We're imagining that this book is an advertising to your coaching business. I said, no. The book is the business. If you read the book, you won't need any coaching because I'm giving you a lot of practical advice for your health, career, spirituality, investment choices, relationship choices. So it's a comprehensive guide that basically depicts how I handled the 5 most important aspects of my life to get to where I am today. But the questions kept coming in demand. So you should be coaching. You're coaching, right? Why aren't you coaching? So then I said, okay, fine. I'll create a coaching program. I created the modules and everything, and I started coaching one-on-one. And that's how this happened. Really, the book was not the advertising material. You know how people have businesses and then they write all these books to say a little bits of information about their business to attract clients. So my case was completely different. Really, the book is the coaching. And if you take it to heart, you don't have to pay me money to coach you.
Okay, so that is really interesting. So with you, everything evolves gradually. You don't have any huge crashes or everything. You save money. You learn about things. Then first, then go into business. That is that is completely opposite of most of our heroes, where they go bankrupt and then they start thinking about money, or they go jobless and then they start thinking about a new profession. And you did everything just far more
No, no, no.
sustainable.
No, it was not sustainable because in 2008, when I realized I wasn't going to make it as a musician, I was making like less than $18,000 a year in the United States when I had been in the country for 7 years already. I was so poor and I was so emotionally drained from all this practice that that was my early midlife crisis, actually. That's what prompted everything because I had no confidence. I had nothing. I was emotionally speaking and professionally, I was nowhere. So that was my crisis. Okay. Yeah, I could barely survive because I had never had enough money to lose as much money to go bankrupt, Peter. And I mean, the crisis didn't really affect me in 2008, other than I knew the orchestra was not going to survive. That was in 2008. I saw the writing on the wall, went to nursing school, and in 2018, in 2011, we did bankrupt. But uh, I was in a poor position to begin with. So there was nowhere slower to go. And the other problem was very important, an intellectual problem, that having practiced the violin so many years for 9 hours a day, 7 hours a day, 11 hours a day, and being financially where I was, I really had very difficult time believing that, I can become a different professional in 3 or 4 years and actually start making real money, since I hadn't succeeded for 26 years to do that. So that was my problem. And it was a big thing to overcome because the self-limitations, there is nothing stronger than self-limitations. Nothing else is stronger than your own limits. And that was my big struggle. So yeah, I did have my crisis, definitely. And if I didn't have it though, I would never be where I am today.
Okay, so you have a story uh, about the
I do have a
crisis and
story.
being down. And I want to ask you another thing. You're a coach now, and we all believe you said that a lot can be done just by using your book. But you mentioned that you had your Robert Kiyosaki as a coach. How important are coaches in your life? For example, you made a huge progress in last 15 years. How important were other coaches than Robert Kiyosaki in your life? How important was that for your personal development? Did you rely more on books, or did you rely also on coaches? And are you still using coaches? How you go about it today?
Well, actually, I did rely on books more than coaches. But remember, Kiyosaki's books, they were really to advertise his business. That's why I needed his coaching. And the coaching was fantastic. I mean, really, really helpful. But there is a way to put all this coaching into books without having to purchase a multi-thousand-dollar course. Okay. But he's an entrepreneur. That was his thing. He never wanted to have a job. I don't mind having both, because if you know both things, you're really flexible then, and you're not feeling bad about doing one or the other. And if you don't succeed in one, you always have the other. So that's a great way to spread your abilities and learning and skills and being of use to other people. But after Kisaki, I purchased more coaching because then I got very curious about the stock market, and I became an options trader as well, a very successful options trader. So I purchased coaching from one of Kiyosaki's coaches, his paper asset coach, Andy Tanner. So that was another thing I did a couple years later, because I was very intimidated by the stock market because I couldn't comprehend at all how it worked. So I decided I'm going to overcome that limit too, because I overcame so many limits already. I became a science professional from an arts professional. Then I became an investor, so I can now understand the stock market, right? So, but I took the coaching because see, that's one thing I probably wouldn't be able to learn from books because I needed somebody to explain really well how this thing worked, and it was great. But both are important. I really suggest people who don't have enough money, because we always start from nothing. If we really want to make progress and we feel that we need the coaching, obviously we don't have enough money. So always read first, because when you read, you can choose your coaches better. In my experience, okay, because I read 6 books of his before I decided to pay all this money for the coaching, because it was a lot of money for me at the time. I was a beginning nurse. My salary was minimal because I was at the start and I had no seniority. So I had to gauge my finances very well. So books were great. But then if you're really hungry, if the book gets you want to know more, and a coach can be excellent. But as I have also had not so great coaches. So it's another risk you take. So I mean, either way, you have to take your risks, you have to take your responsibilities and see what works for you. Ultimately, you're the one responsible to find out what really works for you. Nobody else can tell you that.
Okay, now I have a risk management question. I'm a certified risk manager, and I see that you're really really hedging your risks in let's say best way possible. You still have a job, and you have a job where the job market is secure. You have a special skill that is needed, so you are a nurse, and you invest in property and stock market. And right now, both of these markets are on their way down, or we all think that they're gonna go down. How have you secured yourself against the market drop? How leveraged are you in property? How leveraged are you in stock market? Where's your pain point? Will you invest more? Will you wait for prices to drop? How do you look at the property? Property is probably #1 investment in US, if we say by the number of millionaires created by investing in property.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you see the market in the future? What's your strategy? How will you hedge against the market going down?
See, the thing is, I don't really rely on capital gains, Peter. I know most people do that. Capital gains is like an extra benefit for me, but I'm primarily a cash flow investor. So I buy properties I keep. And that's Warren Buffett's favorite strategy. He buys, he doesn't sell. So you keep the properties, you keep the cash flow every month, every year. It's an asset that lasts for generations when it's managed properly. And of course, I use another strategy. I never increased the rents the way the landlords here increased the rents after the COVID crisis. So I kept all of my tenants, because I kept the rents the same with super gradual increases like we always have had. And my tenants stayed. I just didn't increase my expenses in the meantime either. Okay, so when I buy properties, I keep them. Now the market still is dropping, but it's still not good enough for me to buy another property. I mean, any smart investor who purchases real estate, we are hibernating now, stashing our cash to see when the market crashes, and it's going to be probably a worse crash than in 2008. I hope not, but where it's heading is just so, prices are so unrealistic right now. I can give you an example. The fourplex, the building with 4 apartments that I bought in, 2014 was $200,000, which was already in the middle of a bubble. And now somebody from the same exact neighborhood that is full of these buildings with 4 apartments each called me to try and sell me their property for $900,000. And I told him, you're out of your mind. I'm not going to buy this for $900,000 because somebody had bought it with poor judgment. They went under, and so now they want to get rid of it because apparently they did all sorts of renovations on the property. And now they want to sell it for $900,000. And I told them no. So the real estate investor was pulling his hair trying to sell this property. So the high prices are only people who really don't understand the market cycles buy at high prices. And that's the same with the stock market. And mind you, I don't ever buy stock. I only get stock if it's assigned to me through options trading, because I also have never bought a single option in my life, call or put. I only sell puts and calls. I'm always on the seller side when it comes to the options. So when you learn these things, that's where you need the coach though, to tell you the difference of the benefits and risks. and you devise your strategy accordingly. But with the dropping market, with the real estate, it doesn't bother me because I have no intention to sell my properties.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's conclude with the knowledge that we get. I think one of the most important lessons is read first, then choose your coach. Is that anything you would like to add to this? Because you're also a coach and you also have a book. So I do believe that is a fair advice. Read first, then choose your coach. And I would like another insight from you. How much time should we dedicate to a coach if we feel that it's not the right coach for us? How long should we endure? Because maybe it's just the coach is pushing us out of our comfort zone, and maybe it's not the coach fault. But you also said there's a lot of bad coaches, and I agree, because in every business 80% of the people is let's say average or below average. But
Right.
how should our listeners know that the coach is right for them?
My judgment is that if the coach has done their job well, you won't need them for a very long time. Because you can only learn so much from a certain person, and if they're trying to hook you to stay with them forever, then that's not a good coach. That's like the healthcare system keeping you sick for decades so you can buy their medications. Okay, so I like to have different coaches if I have to. Eventually, you need to become your own coach because nobody has more common sense than you do if you know exactly what your goals are and what you want to accomplish in your life. But people tend to chronically rely on coaches when they don't really have security on their goals and constantly need reassurance. I've seen that side of things too. I buy coaching programs that, I bought 2 or 3, let's say, and once the program is done, the coaches always try to sell you more products from what I have seen. I don't necessarily buy any more products from them because it's the same stuff that they just say in a different way. So if you see that, then you stop using that coach. But if you see that they can offer something new that is relevant to your current goals, by all means buy it if you think it's going to be useful for you, right? It just really depends on your goals and where you're going in life. But pushing you out of the comfort zone, see, the reason why I chose Robert Kiyosaki is because he started from nowhere. He's a self-made millionaire, and I wanted to be that way too. So that's why I chose him as a coach, because he has been nearly at the brink of homelessness. And that spoke to me in some way that, okay, so he's been so poor and he now where he is right now. I want to learn from this person. I knew it was going to be very uncomfortable, and it was. But I wanted that out of the comfort zone because my comfort zone was like super narrow, and that's why my means were very narrow. But you stop using the coach if they start repeating things that you already have heard many times and you have accomplished them. Okay, then I would say change the coach or go on your own for a little bit and see how you can do, because you'll be surprised how resourceful you become if you apply certain knowledge to heart and then you find your own ways to expand it to fit your purposes. And it's great to be self-reliable and that independent.
Okay, before we finish, I would like to know who should consult you as a coach. What's your perfect client looks like? What is the demographics that you can help the most?
Midlife crisis can occur in many age stages. So mine was at 32. So anybody from their early 30s to late 50s, early 60s could be a great client if they're in a crisis at a crossroads, poor trust in their abilities to change their lives for the better. Anybody who would like to reverse chronic disease, become a cash flow investor, find purpose in their career for the sake of being useful and staying marketable and desired by people for their skills. Okay. And then, of course, comes the relationship factor, how you prioritize your relationships, extremely important in making all the decisions in the other aspects of your life. So we discussed that. We discussed time management, mind control. Anybody who wants to get all of the aspects of their lives in control, I can coach you and I will push you to the end, because that's how I had to do it for myself. And through my experience, I can show you how you can do it for yourself. I can't tell you what to do, but I can show you what you can do. Okay, depending where you want to be in your life, and be a completely holistically confident person. Because see, when people say holistic, they really think health mostly, but it's not just health. With confidence, you need to have excellent health to accomplish the financial side, because if you're starting poor like I did, there's going to be a lot of work you need to do, okay, because you can't pay others to do it for you. So your health is essential. And then comes the financial knowledge, how you build your wealth to be cash flowing and sustain you. You have the choices to work or have a business or both or neither. Okay, so everything is connected, and that's what I teach people. So if you're in your 20s, 18, you really don't realize that you don't have as much time as you think, so I won't be able to coach you because you won't have the patience, okay? But if you have passed 30 and you're nowhere where you thought you would be at that age, and if you're 65 and you crave a change of that age spectrum, the ideal client, because they really are willing to understand and do something with their lives that is more meaningful than it was before. And these people are eager to learn, what I have noticed, and they're great students.
Where can our listeners reach you?
I have a website. It's called holisticselfconfidence.com. So from the website, there is a contact form. There is also an email address in the coaching page. All of my social outlets are with links. They can see my videos, my media appearances. There is a blog. Anything they want to do through the website is a great starting point. holisticselfconfidence.com.
Okay, I will include that in the description. And before we finish, I would just like to ask you for the one last insight that you would like to transfer to our listeners. What is the one most important thing that person should know when considering a coach?
The coach will help you get there, not necessarily faster, but in a more insightful way. So you want to gain as much, to listen from the other person's experience, because if you have no experience in something you want to accomplish, you'll be better off with a coach in general. Don't be afraid to jump into an unfamiliar territory, because the person will never stride your attention the way you expected, because they have different experience. But a great mentor is always willing to share their failures with you. That's another way you know what a good mentor is, because they'll tell you what they went through to get to where they are today. And that type of person can tremendously help you along the way and expand your viewpoint and succeed in anything that you decide to succeed if you have the right coach.
Thank you very much for this insight. So if coach is ready to share his or her failures with you, then this is a good sign that this is a good coach.
We all have failures. We all have failures. So that's important for the people who follow to know, because they'll see that it's can be overcome. It's encouraging.
Yeah. Thank you for these insights, and thank you for this incredible conversation. Thank you for being my guest tonight, Alexandra.
Thank you for having me, Peter. It was a pleasure.